Namaste and welcome. If you have ever heard the word mantra and thought of it as something merely religious, something ritualistic, something symbolic, something cultural, but perhaps not deeply practical, then this episode is for you. And if you are a busy professional, someone whose mind is constantly active, whose attention is stretched, whose nervous system is often carrying more than it should, then I especially want you to stay with me. Because today, I want to speak about what mantra yoga really does. Not in a vague way, not in a decorative way, and not in a way that reduces it to a trend, a slogan, or a mystical soundbite. I want to speak about it as something I have lived with for a very long time. I came into mantra not as an adult curiosity, but as a way of life from early on. From around the age of 10, I grew up in Vedic monastic educational environments where sacred sound, chanting, discipline, contemplation, and spiritual culture were woven into the very fabric of daily life and routine. This was not something I encountered later as a wellness tool, which it certainly is, by the way. It was part of the atmosphere that shaped me growing up. And then, as life unfolded, I also moved deeply into the modern academic and scientific world through advanced studies in statistics, bioinformatics, and genomics, and then a PhD followed by research work in demanding public health and medical environments in the United States. So, in my own life, I have seen what happens to the human mind in both worlds. I have seen the beauty of refined inner discipline, and I have seen the strain of relentless mental pressure. I have seen what intellectual rigor can sharpen, and I have seen what modern life can quietly deplete if you are not aware. So, when I speak about mantra today, I'm speaking from that meeting point, the meeting point between lived spiritual practice and deep exposure to high performance, high cognitive demand environments. And from that place, I want to say something clearly. Mantra yoga is not merely about chanting words, it is about what sacred sound does to the structure of your inner life. It affects attention, it affects breath, it affects emotional tone, it affects nervous system agitation, it affects subtle energy, it affects the relationship between the mind and consciousness. In other words, a mantra is not simply something you utter. It is that begins to reshape the field in which you live from the inside. This is why I prefer not to think of a mantra merely as a sound. I think of it as an inner technology of recollection, refinement, and return. Now, let us make that very practical. What does mantra do to the mind? The modern mind is overstimulated, overfed, and under-integrated. There is too much input, too much noise, too much switching, too much internal commentary, too much outward pull on attention. And because of that, many people today are not just tired, they are inwardly noisy. Even when they sit down to rest, the mind does not rest. It keeps replaying, projecting, processing, anticipating, rehearsing, comparing, worrying, calculating. This constant movement of mind creates friction, and that friction becomes fatigue. One of the first things mantra does is this. It gives the mind a single rhythmic meaningful point of return. This is extremely important because the mind does not calm down merely by being told to calm down. It calms down when it is given a more refined object, a more coherent rhythm, and a more nourishing pattern of engagement. Mantra gives it that. Instead of the mind wandering through dozens of fragmented thought loops, mantra invites attention into one sacred current. And over time, that repeated return begins to reduce internal scattering. The mind becomes less diffused, less jagged, less impulsively outward bound, not because force was used against it, but because it was given something deeper and more ordered to rest into. This is one of the first gifts of the mantra. Now, what does mantra do to energy? This is where many people misunderstand the practice. They think mantras are purely mental or purely devotional. But a mantra is also energetic. Human beings are not just biochemical systems. We are also rhythmic, vibrational, breath linked beings. The way we breathe affects the way we feel. The way we feel affects the way we think. The way we think affects the way our energy flows. And the way our energy flows affects how alive, clear, grounded, or depleted we feel. When mantra is practiced with sincerity, repetition, and proper attention, it begins to regulate this field. It gives breath a rhythm, it gives energy a direction, it reduces wasteful agitation, it can soften emotional turbulence, it can gather leaked vitality. And this matters deeply for busy professionals because so many people today are not simply lacking time, they are lacking coherent energy. They have energy leaks everywhere: attention leaks, emotional leaks, speech leaks, digital leaks, decision leaks, worry leaks. By the end of the day, they may not even know where their life force has gone. They just know they feel dull, scattered, heavy, or drained. Mantra begins to reverse that trend, not overnight, not mechanically, but steadily. It helps move a person from diffusion toward coherence, and coherence is power. Now, let us talk about the inner state, because this is where the deepest misunderstanding often lies. Most people evaluate practices based on whether they produce immediate relief. But mantra yoga, when engaged authentically, does something more important than temporary relief. It begins to alter your baseline inner state. This is a profound shift. Temporary relief says, I feel better for a few minutes. A shift in baseline says, I am gradually becoming a different kind of person to live inside. More steady, more clear, less reactive, less internally frantic, more connected, more capable of silence, more capable of pause, more capable of holding life without constantly being thrown by it. This is where mantra becomes deeply transformative because it does not merely distract you from your turbulence, it slowly trains the system toward a different quality of being. The mind starts becoming less sticky, emotions start becoming less overwhelming, inner space begins to open, a subtle companionship begins to return. And for many people, especially those who have felt internally dry for a long time, this can be deeply moving because what mantra often restores is not just calm, it restores felt connection, connection to breath, connection to presence, connection to the sacred, connection to inner dignity, connection to the part of oneself that is deeper than performance, stress, and social identity. And that is why I often say mantra is not an escape from life. It is a way of inhabiting life more deeply, more cleanly, and more consciously. Now, let me also address something important. Mantra is not magic in the superficial sense. It is not about saying a few sounds casually and expecting your whole life to transform. Its power depends on certain things: attention, repetition, orientation, correctness of approach, relationship to sound, sincerity, consistency. This is why I care not only about mantra, but about precision chanting and authentic daily sadhana or intense spiritual practice. Because when sound is engaged carelessly, its effect is limited. But when it is approached with alignment, reverence, steadiness, and proper method, it begins to penetrate much more deeply. And this is where my own background has influenced me strongly. Coming from years of Vedic educational formation, mantra was never presented to me as a casual self help hack. It was treated as something living, something precise, something worthy of care, something that could shape consciousness. And later, moving through scientific and academic training only deepened my respect for disciplined methods. In both spiritual practice and science, method matters, care matters, repetition matters, integrity matters. That is why when I guide people into mantra yoga, I want them to experience both the depth and the practicality of it, not as a performance, not as a spiritual display, but as a living inner discipline. So, if I had to summarize what mantra yoga really does, I would say this: it gathers the scattered mind, it refines the emotional field, it regulates breath linked energy, it reduces inner noise, it restores sacred rhythm, it helps leaked vitality return to coherence, and over time, it begins to reshape your baseline inner state towards steadiness, clarity, and connectedness. This is not a small thing. For a busy professional, that can change not only how you feel, but how you work, speak, decide, relate, and live. It can make your success less costly. It can make your mind less hostile to inhabit. It can make your life feel less like constant expenditure and more like conscious participation. And perhaps that is one of the deepest gifts of all. So today, I want to leave you with a simple reflection. What is shaping my inner state every day? Ask yourself, is it noise? Is it pressure? Is it endless input? Is it a comparison? Is it mental overuse? Or am I giving my mind, my breath, my energy, and my inner life something sacred enough, steady enough, and refined enough to reorganize me from within? That is a powerful question. And if today's episode has opened something for you, I want to warmly and cordially invite you to my upcoming 2-hour live workshop on mantra yoga, precision chanting, and daily sadhana for busy professionals. The workshop registration details and the special coupon for the community is given in the description and in the pinned comment below. In that workshop, I will go deeper into how mantras actually work, how to approach it correctly, and how to begin building a practice that is not only meaningful but sustainable in real modern life. And for those who stay until the end, I will also share how you can continue this journey with me at a deeper level if that feels aligned for you. And as a small heartfelt gesture for this podcast community, I'm keeping a 10% community coupon available for the first 25 people who register through this invitation. Once again, the registration link for the workshop is given in the description and in the pinned comment below. I want to invite you not as pressure, but as a sincere welcome. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening deeply. And thank you for honoring the possibility that your inner life can be trained, refined, and restored. Until next time, may the sacred sound help you gently return to yourself.